Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Saṅghāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Saṅghāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi saṅghāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi saṅghāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi saṅghāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi saṅghāṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Saranagamaṇaṃ sampunnaṃ.
Āmabante.
Pānātipātā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi.
Pānātipātā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi.
Adhinnādānā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Adhinnādānā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Kāmesu miccācārā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Kāmesu miccācārā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Āvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Pisunā vācā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Pisunā vācā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Parusā vācā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Parusā vācā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Sampappalāpā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Samprapralāpā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Micchā ājīvā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Micchā ājīvā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Visaranena saddhiṃ ājīvāṭṭhamaka sīlaṃ dhammaṃ sādhukaṃ surakkhitāṃ kattvā apamādena sampādē tabbang.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Much merit, Bhante. And now our next item is reading of the minutes. And I would like to read these minutes, please. It was of the talk given on the 29th of April via Zoom. And the meeting commenced with observing the 5 precepts administered by Venerable Vajrarāme Ñāṇasīha Thero, followed by the reading of minutes of the previous meeting. The speaker was Dr. Randula Samarasinghe, and the topic, Phenomena of Arising and Cessation, as explained in the Satipatthana Sutta. The speaker began with a short session of meditation on the Ānāpāna-sati technique, and then introduced his topic based on the stanza from the Dhammapada, wherein the Buddha mentions a single day lived in perception of how all things arise only to pass away is better than 100 years lived not perceiving this phenomena. Realization of Udayavaya, or arising and passing away, as described in this discourse, the Satipatthana Sutta, was detailed by using the discourse as a step-by-step training manual on the practice of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Attention was focused on the Anapanasati Pabba, starting from the coarse breath to the more refined, and the speaker used the sequential use of the Pali words Pajanati, Sikkati, and Viharati, and explained the practical aspects of each of these to enable realization of the arising and passing away. The meeting drew to a close after a brief discussion and very positive comments from the audience, and transference of merit to the Devas and the departed. Could we please adopt those minutes? Could somebody second the minutes, please, for me? Somebody who was there that day? Sanat, were you there that day? I can't remember. That's
I was there.
Yeah,
all right.
Tinta.
All right, thank you. Then we'll adopt the minutes. So the next item is announcements. I would like to please ask everybody to keep your microphones muted, because this is a very valuable talk, and we have a much sought after and a great bhikkhu to talk to us about this, and we will be recording it. Now, the topic for the day, as you know, is Papanca as a cause for mental health issues. Now, mental health issues, anxieties, depression, and stress, even the school children speak using the word stress. They seem to have experienced that. And this, of course, is based on the Pali concept and the Buddhist teaching of Papanca. So we have an excellent speaker, Bhante, to explain all this to us, and the workings of the mind being at the bottom of all these invisible mental health issues. And I would like to invite Venerable Panadure Chandaratana Thero, the Deputy Abbot of Nissarana Forest Monastery, who has recently returned after a journey of Dhammaduta activities in Australia, and is so well known across the globe. We are very fortunate, Bhante, and can I humbly ask Bhante to please begin, but with a short session of meditation, so that we are ready and tuned in to make the maximum benefit of Bhante's sermon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. I think I welcome all of you to this session. So, as Doctor mentioned, so then we'll start the session with some guided sitting. May you sit in a comfortable position. You can relax yourself. Don't take it too serious. You are going to enjoy the present moment. You can gently close your eyes. Now you can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, and slowly release. And we gathered here today to listen to Buddha's teaching and to learn something and to further develop our spiritual qualities. So we can wish everyone may get such a good opportunity to develop ourselves and to get the benefit from the Buddha's teaching. May all of us be well, may all of us be happy, may all of us be free from suffering. And now we can bring our attention to the body. So we are in a sitting posture. Right now, we are sitting. Our eyes are gently closed and our lips are gently touching. Jaws are not tightly coupled, they are relaxed. And we are comfortably, naturally breathing. And we can maintain a slight smile. We are going to enjoy the present moment. And we are going to accept whatever happens. If there are sounds, we can simply listen. If there are odors, we can simply smell. If there are thoughts, we can still be aware of them. We are not driven by them. We can be mindful. Step back and watch everything. See whether you can recognize these subtle sensations. Our shoulders are in a relaxed position. And here and there, clothes are touching the body. Some places it would be a little tight. Some places may be rubbing sensation. Different kind of sensations might happen because of clothes. See whether you can recognize them. You can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, slowly release. Come back to yourself. Be aware of the body. And as we further move down, we can recognize maybe heart vibration, maybe rising and falling of the abdomen. As we breathing in, the abdomen comes forward, rising. As we breathe out, it comes back, falling. We can gently be with this rising and falling. We are giving a little task to the mind to recognize each rising, each falling. We are keeping it very simple. We are not thinking about it. We are not trying to force it, change it. Rather, we simply allow the process to happen naturally. And each rising, I am fully aware. Each falling, I am fully aware. Again, you can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, slowly release. Now, if you like, you can keep your attention at the nostril and try to be aware of each in-breath, each out-breath. Again, we are allowing the body to naturally breathe and be aware of each in-breath, each out-breath. If mind wanders, we can do a little bit of noting. As we experience in-breath, we can note it as in. As we experience out-breath, we can note it as out. Keep it very simple. Allow the mind to enjoy, experience each in-breath, each out-breath. There is no hurry, there is no rush. Simply being aware of each in-breath, each out-breath. If your mindfulness is well established, you can try to see some subtle aspects of breathing, whether it is warm or cool, whether it is long or short, from which nostril it is going in, from which nostril it is going out. Where is it touching? These subtle aspects you can carefully recognize. Again, you can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, slowly release. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So now I am going to start today's Dhamma sermon. So let me share my screen. So Papanca as a cause for mental health. So I thought of starting this session with some today's research findings. Actually, definitely we can get into Buddha's teaching slowly. But in order to arouse some sort of curiosity and connect with today's scientific knowledge and some research already conducted by various people, and I thought of sharing with you some recent findings. And recent research findings also very much approve what we are going to discuss today. And in one book called Effortless Mindfulness by Lisa Dale Miller, she too is a psychiatrist and seems to be a psychotherapist, and she is telling in this particular book, at the center of what goes wrong cognitively in a mind overcome with depression and anxiety is an elite pair of bad actors, rumination and worry, amplifying each other. They contribute to the longevity and intensity of symptoms. So basically here she talks about two aspects, and rumination and worry, and those are adversely affecting depression and anxiety. So I'm not a doctor, so I'm just trying to get some indications, some experts' findings to get into this topic, so that we very much know what we are trying to talk. So the rumination and worry, therefore, contributing to depression and anxiety. So these are some we can say some concrete findings that people have done through research. And then another research conducted by few more others, several others actually. So their conclusion: worry has been shown to magnify both anxious and depressive symptoms, while rumination exacerbates depression by binding repetitive thoughts to negative beliefs and attitudes. So we might have negative beliefs, we might have various different kinds of fixations in the mind, and again we are thinking about them, and ultimately can end up with various anxiety or depressive symptoms, or even depression. And then the same book, Effortless Mindfulness, that Lisa Dale Miller, so she is further highlighting rumination and worry, two aversive forms of papanca, arise from hatred and unwholesome conceptual formation. Each is nurtured and sustained by self-directed negativity. So here, self-directed negativity. So you are thinking bad about yourself. You are thinking negatively about yourself, kind of self-hate. And so ultimately, this can actually lead to a kind of depression. And at the same time, by rumination, by conceptual proliferation, the whole situation get aggravated. So she again highlighted about the rumination and worry. And another finding by several others, rumination and depression have been shown to increase attentional fixation and decrease cognitive flexibility. So attentional fixation, now you can't think something else. You are very much fixed. Your mind is fairly fixed, narrowed. And out of that, you can't think. So again and again, you are thinking the same thing. Rumination is going on. And this is another group, they have very much found the same thing. And it has gone to a major depressive disorder in research studies with major depressive disorder sufferers. Mind wandering occurs most prominently in rest periods between mental tasks, during which subjects report ruminative, negative self-referential thinking. Another aspect we can recognize from here, so when we don't have a particular task assigned, when we are simply idling, when we are simply have a little free time, during that time, rather mind become relaxed and peaceful. So here they found the mind can get into a kind of depressive disorder because of that negative self-referential thinking. Again and again, something going on about ourselves, and it can be more negative and can ultimately lead to a depressive disorder. Now, here from these facts, what I want to highlight is that, so these are some recent findings, and they are based on fairly, we can assume that some factual information, and they were conducted more professionally, scientifically, and now they have recognized rumination, worrying, conceptual proliferation are major causes for various mental issues. Now, this is actually highlighted by the Buddha very prominently in many courses, in many discourses, and I am just referring few discourses here. And here Buddha mentioned cause for all proliferation. Now, today's topic is very much into Papanca and highlighting their contribution towards various mental issues, health issues. And here Buddha talks about the root of the conceptual proliferation. The root here where Buddha highlights as the conceit I am, the entire root of concepts due to proliferation. So the I am, that is very much, very deeply rooted, we can say, wrong perception, a wrong thought, a way of looking at things, how we feel, sense of I. So many different ways we can recognize it. Anyway, Buddha mentioned, by reflection, he should stop the conceit I am, the entire root of concepts due to proliferation. The Blessed One said, whatever cravings there may be internally, he should always train mindfully for their removal. So Buddha actually enhanced the topic, adding various other factors into the picture. But very much the theme of this whole verse is that the root cause of conceptual proliferation is the conceit I am, asmi mana. Now, directly conceptual proliferation is highlighted as a disease in several suttas. So one sutta is we can recognize from Samyutta Nikaya, Yavakalapi Sutta. So there are Buddha mentioned, Papancitam bhikkave rogo, Papancitam gando, Papancitam salla, Tasmatiha bhikkave nipapanchena cetasa viharissamati, evam hivo bhikkave sikkitabba. Proliferation is a disease, proliferation is a tumor, proliferation is a dart. Therefore, bhikkhus, you should train yourself thus. We will dwell with a mind devoid of proliferation. Now, actually, today I don't want to discuss much about how to overcome proliferation. Maybe at another time we can talk about it. But here, today I want to highlight how they are impacting our mental health. So what would be the best state of mind? So if we can get a little idea about a kind of a healthy state of mind, so then probably we can get an idea what is a unhealthy state of mind. Now, just before we start this session, actually we did a little bit of guided mindful sitting. So there we tried to relax ourselves, forget about all what has happened. We stopped as much as possible about various regrets. We tried to calm down the mind. We tried to relax the mind, try to maintain some peace within the mind. So we didn't allow ourselves to fall asleep, and we didn't allow various doubts to arise. So very much like we are trying to maintain a fairly healthy state of mind. So from the Buddhist point of view, we can say we are trying to maintain a mind free from hindrances. So as you all have heard, 5 hindrances Buddha mentioned. The first one is sensual desire, kamachanda. Second one, ill will, vyapada. Third, sotantopa, tinamidda. Fourth, uddachakukkucca, that is restlessness and regrets. And then vicikicca, that is the kind of skeptical doubts. Now these, whenever our minds are fairly overwhelmed by any of these, are influenced by any of these, actually we can say mind is not in a healthy state. Suppose that you are in a kind of burning with anger. So definitely you all can understand. So then the mind is not in a comfortable state. Rather your body also feels uncomfortable and your mind is also burning with anger. It's not a comfortable state of mind, not a healthy state of mind. On the other hand, on another occasion, probably the mind is overwhelmed by lust. The mind is burning with lust. There also mind become anxious, and again mind become more crowded, and you can't think anything else. So your mind become really drowned into a particular state of mind. So where it is quite unhealthy, you become really uncomfortable, you are driven by lust, you are under the influence of lust. So there also we can understand, so mind is not in a healthy state. And say you are nodding and probably in a drowsy mood. So that is also not an active mind. That is also not a fairly alert and not in a healthy state, where your mind is not in an active state. And if you have various doubts, if you have various perplexities, there also you are going to this state, that state, thinking about him, think about her, think about many other people, and doubtful about them or doubtful about yourself, and doubtful about whatever a situation. So again, mind become anxious, mind become restless. So that is also not a healthy state. So we can see whenever these hindrances are coming to the picture or trying to crowd the mind, try to overwhelm the mind, so we can understand, okay, I am not in a good, healthy position. My mind's clarity is not available to me right now. So mind is under the influence of various other unhealthy states of mind, unhealthy participants or unhealthy contributions, attributes, which are fairly, we can say, harming the mind, crowding the mind, and overwhelming the mind. And whenever these things are happening, so actually they may not happen immediately. They may grow slowly, step by step. And one form of happening then is because of this conceptual proliferation. For example, someone has done something wrong to you, and you may thinking about that particular event. And on the way back to home, you were thinking about it. While driving, you are thinking about it. And while getting down your vehicle, maybe you are thinking about it. While eating, you are thinking about it. And now you are trying to rest yourself, maybe while watching a television, but you are thinking about what has happened today, how he has behaved. You may be having your dinner, but you are thinking about him, what has happened. Now you can see we are aggravating the situation by thinking. We couldn't stop, we couldn't control the mind, or we couldn't let go of what has happened, but rather by thinking, we are more and more aggravating the situation. Unfortunately, we are adding more and more stuff to the situation. But what has really happened might be a little event. But now we are adding various things, maybe with respect to the past, I'm adding. So what he has done in the past. So maybe to the future, I'm adding what he's going to do in the future. And even to the current situation, we are adding, okay, what he might do to my children, to my parents, or my friends, myself even. So likewise, I can aggravate the situation by thinking, more and more thinking. I am thinking with respect to the past, future, present, and what I have seen, what I have heard, what I have imagined. Now, all these things refer a kind of a process going on in the mind, where very much like we are multiplying the whole situation. So the thought process is not directed in a particular direction, on a selected healthy direction, but rather it is randomly jumping to this and that and into many directions. So this many directional jumping, many directional thinking ultimately can overwhelm the person. So this is actually mentioned very beautifully in the well-known sutta called Madhupindika Sutta, where how thinking ultimately overwhelm a person. So the whole process starts in a very, say, innocent manner, we can say. But ultimately it overwhelms the person who is getting to this whole process. So there actually we can talk about 3 states, or we can say 3 stages. So the first stage is very much a kind of a dependently arisen process, which is even common to the Buddha, even common to the Arahants, common to the nobles, and common to the world beings. So that's a dependently arisen process. And then there is a personal involvement into the picture. And ultimately, this personal involvement leads to kind of a overwhelming situation. Now, the very person who started this thinking process has become a victim of that very process, where the whole process has grown to an extent where he can't stop himself. So this is how highlighted very beautifully in the Madhupindika Sutta. So we can very much talk from the very primitives, very fundamentals, how when a person is looking at something, how he starts conscious about it. And then as a result of that, he is being aware of it, he is become a little alert about it. His mind become a little excited about it. And now a feeling arises. So there's assume that it may be a pleasurable feeling. And as one feels, now he want to recognize what's going on. He perceives. And once we perceive, start thinking. So this thinking is what slowly growing. Maybe thinking with respect to the past, to the future, to the present. But here, still we are thinking or considering only the eye contact. And now slowly thinking overwhelms the person. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. Now, when it comes to proliferation stage, so one is very much like become a victim. With what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions of mental proliferation beset a man with respect to past, future, present forms of cognizable through the eye. Now, here only we are talking about the eye contact or eye consciousness, but this is common to all the contact. Through the eyes, we simply see the sights. Through the ears, we simply hear sounds. Through the nose, odors. Through the tongue, we recognize various tastes. And from the body, we recognize various tactile sensations. And then from the mind, we can recognize various mental objects. Now, whenever we are using all these sense data, since we don't know how to handle them, and we allow the mind to very much think about them, again and again think about them, consider about them, and ultimately we can't stop ourselves and we get into a kind of a vicious cycle. Now, immediately it may not happen. The whole process starts as a very innocent, dependently arisen process, but then only I am involving, I am putting my hand, I am interrupting, or I am adding myself, or I am doing a little bit of fabrication, I am doing a little bit of contribution to that what has happened, what I have seen. So my part happens in the middle, but when that contribution or that interruption or that participation happens, so now that independent process, or we can say the dependently arisen natural process, has diverted to a kind of a personal interpretation, involvement, and ultimately it can grow to many different directions, and that many directional thinking ultimately become the conceptual proliferation, Papanca. Now, once Papanca level has arisen, so now I can't stop. So the person who started thinking has become a victim of that very thinking. So this is the process, typically what we can see coming from the Madhupindika Sutta, how thinking lead to conceptual proliferation. And there's another story available in the Digha Nikaya. So there's a very interesting discussion between Buddha and the god Sakka. So god Sakka asks an interesting question. But what, dear sir, is the cause of thinking? What is its origination? What gives it birth? What is its source? When what exists, does it come into being? When what doesn't exist, does it not? So basically, he is asking about thinking. So how thinking happens? What are its causes? And by eliminating which cause, that we can stop thinking. So the Buddha answers differently here from a different point of view. Thinking has the concepts characterized by the proliferating tendency as its cause, has the concepts as its origination, has the concepts as what gives it birth, has the concepts as its source. When the concepts exist, thinking comes into being. When the concepts are not, it doesn't. Now we can see another picture here. Now concepts. So what we have prepared, what we have conventionally agreed, what we have found as human beings, as a society, as a group, as a department, as a country, as a nation. So we have found various things. We are very much adding many labels. We have our own names. We have our own identifications. We have our own way of telling things. And various words, various sentences, grammar, languages, names to everything, names to places, names to roads, names to individuals. Now, conventionally, now the whole system become fairly conceptualized. So concepts play a big role in this typical society. So now we take concepts for granted and we think, okay, these concepts are very valuable and we need to learn all these concepts. We need to learn, we need to memorize all these different names. And so we are learning them, we are memorizing them, and we are using them heavily during our communication and during our writing and all this way. So now concepts are very much some essential component for our living. Now, even we are thinking based on concepts. Now, in order to think, we may need a language. So when we are thinking, so we are using many different types of words, sentences. And using that particular word, sentences, okay, I am now thinking. Now, when these concepts are available, it promotes thinking. And these concepts are actually the products of proliferation. Now, say, for example, assume that I want to, and we as a group assume that there's a newly built road. And now we need to put a name to the newly built road. There was no road before that. And we all get together and we started a bit of, say, Shramadana. And then we started making a road. And now we all want, okay, now several people are becoming the inhabitants there. And now we need to give a name to that particular road. So we are selecting, okay, we are proposing different names. So what would be the most appropriate name for this particular road? So since we all contributed, maybe let's name it as Samagimavat. Maybe the road of the peace. So we are naming it. So we are labeling it. So now we are putting a label, we are putting a banner. Okay, this is Samagimavat. This is the road of the peace. So now it's become a solidified. So in our mind, now we recognize, okay, this is Samagimavat. So this is how it is indicated. This is how it has to be represented. This is how it has to be named. And this is where it is located. And when you are explaining it to another person, how to come to your house, okay, you can give directions. And probably nowadays you can look into the Google map. So you can find out where the road is. So these concepts are very essential in that sense. But on the other hand, when you see that road, you can remember how you were doing, how you were contributing, how all of the villagers are building that road, how many others are contributing. Probably you were able to get some support from the politicians. Now you are getting to various thoughts, and it's a bit interesting story now. So you even like to tell that story, how you were building that road, to another person. And you are going to a, say, working place, and you are talking how you are contributing, how the others are all working together, and ultimately end up with a very beautiful road. And you have named it like this. So it has become a story. So the name, whenever you see, it's promoting thinking. So it's igniting the thinking process within our mind. So the name is a product of proliferation. So we all come together, we discussed about it, and many different people have put various ideas. Probably we come across different names to the road, but ultimately with the majority of the votes, say we selected, okay, let's name it as Samagimavata. Now you can see here actually there is all these conventions, all these concepts are the products of mental proliferation, too much thinking, considerations, and the interesting part is now they become actually promoting thinking. When you see that name, again you get various thoughts. So it promotes thinking. Now Buddha mentioned thinking has the concepts as its cause, has the concepts as its origination, has the concepts as what gives it birth, has the concepts as its source. When the concepts exist, thinking comes into being. When the concepts are not, it doesn't. Now here, concepts in the Pali terms, we can say Papanca Sanya or Papanca Sanya Sankha. And they are very much like static. And they promote this static concepts which have the tendency to proliferate. When one see it, refer it, use it, so that one's mind become agitated, rumination going on, thinking going on, again and again referring going on, and the thinking is a cause or a product of these concepts. Now actually we can see kind of a vicious cycle where in the first level we can say thinking promotes conceptual proliferation, as we can see in the Madhupindika Sutta. And on the other hand, the product of thinking is these concepts. So whenever we see those conventions, concepts, names, words, languages, so whatever man-made products and various kind of promotional advertisements. So when we see them, when we hear them, actually they promote thinking. Now this is actually a kind of a vicious cycle we get into. So once we start thinking, we may end up with various products, various conclusions, various conventions. And once we are referring them again and again, so that promote thinking. So we are very much like trapped. So all these things, actually we can say, can come to that stage. So Buddha mentioned proliferation as a disease. So mind become fairly crowded. I mean, you can't stop yourself. Once you see a beautiful thing, okay, you get kind of a desire about it. You start thinking about it. You can't stop thinking about it because it is so beautiful. The way it is presented is so attractive. And people know how to do all these fabrications, all these promotional advertisements are, products of this human thinking, fabrication, constructions, preparations. And it promotes thinking the person who is seeing that. And say music, composing, is a product of many people's contribution. One may be writing the lyrics, and maybe some others doing the music composing, and another person is singing. It's a kind of a contribution of many people. And ultimately it becomes a song. And the person who is listening to that song, not only enjoying it, but again promotes thinking. He's getting to a new state in the mind. And basically, he starts thinking. And where the thinking takes us, it can take us even to the depression. It can take us into a kind of a mental sickness. It can take us into a kind of say anxiety. Because thinking started and we don't know how to tame the mind. We simply allow the mind to think. Ultimately, that thinking is growing in many different directions, and we become a victim of that very thinking. And now I can't stop thinking. So many directional thinking is one aspect. And on the other hand, into the rumination, so it's a kind of a repetitive thinking on the kind of a subject, where I can't stop myself. Again and again, same disturbing thought process happens and I can't stop thinking. So we can see the gravity of this subject. And when we are coming to the mental, say, calmness or peacefulness. So as we just discussed, as after a little bit of meditation, after a little bit of mindfulness practice, mind become calm, relaxed, less thinking. So it is not through thinking that we are trying to realize the Buddha's teaching. Rather, here, we are trying to calm down the mind. So just before the session, we did a little bit of mindful sitting. So it calms down the mind. And it promotes kind of peace in the mind, a relaxed state in the mind, a kind of equanimous state in the mind. So this equanimous, calm, relaxed, and silent state of mind is complete opposite of this rumination, complete opposite of this worrying, complete opposite of this conceptual proliferation. So therefore, conceptual proliferation, Buddha highlights as a dart, as a kind of a tumor, as a kind of a disease. So you can see the gravity, how Buddha has seen the problem. So we couldn't actually see beforehand. We promote thinking, and people may even tell you, why don't you think about it? So whenever a problem happens, people are promoting thinking. Why don't you think about it? Give a second thought. So that is how we are telling, okay, you give a second thought. You better ask from someone and think about it further. That's how we promote. So thinking is a tool, actually, we as human beings. So so that is a kind of a very good opportunity we have. Thinking is not a really bad thing in that sense. But if we don't know how to think, and if we can't stop ourselves thinking, then ultimately it can lead us to kind of mental illness. So therefore, this thinking, too much thinking, or overthinking, has become a major issue in one's life. So are you a person who is overthinking? Are you a person who is thinking too much? Are you a person who can't stop thinking? Are you a kind of a person who cries because of too much thinking? Or are you a person become more anxious because of thinking? Suppose that there is a presentation tomorrow, and suppose that you are thinking, and you couldn't prepare the slides, or you couldn't prepare enough, facts to that, and there are many participants going to participate. There are many distinguished guests. So why are you becoming anxious? Why you become nervous? So what is happening to your mental health? So why can't you sleep well today night? So because of too much thinking. So we are anticipating the situation, and we think that things can become wrong. I can go wrong. The words might not come into the mind, and all the, say, facts I am going to tell might not come into the memory. So I might lose my memory. So all these different things I can imagine, and I can think about it. I can then become anxious, and might be even putting myself down. So likewise, so this too much thinking actually makes us really worrying, really anxious, and really restless. And when there are doubts, even we can't sleep. And when there is restlessness, we can't even sleep. So when we can't have enough sleep, then it can lead to maybe certain further mental illnesses. So as you might know, so there may be, say, psychiatric doctors here in this audience probably. So you might know. So doctors, when someone is going to take some help from them, so they are asking, so are you getting proper sleep? Is there any disturbance in your sleeping cycle? Are you getting proper sleep? Because you can't even sleep well because you are thinking too much. So mind has become too restless. Various doubts. So too much doubts. So various names are there to various diseases. I am not going to tell about them because I am not an expert in that. So you can see, so these little things, so this thinking, if we don't know how to handle it properly, if we have no control about it, and it can become a real major disaster. It's a real capacity we have. It's a kind of a skill we have. But if we don't know how to use that skill properly, it can lead to this conceptual proliferation, which ultimately lead to different kind of mental health issues. So actually, I just want to highlight these points, and many different solutions actually Buddha suggests, and talking to them will take time. Probably actually it is worth discussing those many different solutions in a separate topic because it's really worthy subject. But understanding the gravity of the problem is also very important. So that is what I try to do today. So understand the gravity of this problem. So conceptual proliferation is a disease. Proliferation is a tumor. Proliferation is a dart. So therefore Buddha advised his followers, therefore bhikkhus, you should train yourself thus. We will dwell with a mind devoid of proliferation. So kind of a direction is given to our practice. So if you are a mindfulness practitioner, so we need to recognize the direction. What is the direction that it has to lead us? So even though I am practicing mindfulness, even though I am practicing metta, even though I am practicing, say, mindfulness in breathing, so if I am allowing my mind to think too much, overthinking, conceptually proliferate, so I am very much not getting the enough benefits from what I am doing. So if I can recognize the direction, so these methods are there for me to minimize thinking and have a little bit of control in thinking. And then I am putting a kind of direction to my practice. I am putting a objective to my practice. And again, I am making kind of a culture in my mind. So I am not allowing, say, many directional, random, or say harmful way of thinking, but the thinking may happen under my supervision. Thinking may happen within the mindful space. If such is possible, then it's great. Maybe at another time we can discuss, so what are the possibilities available, what are the remedies available, what are the methods available to overcome this conceptual proliferation. And actually, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon with that. And now I like to open the session for questions.
Thank you very much, Bhante, for that very valuable, and I think we can all appreciate how that works. Overthinking, going on, getting obsessed with a thought. But then we can use a disease. It will be very interesting to know how to get out of that situation in another session, of course. Hasn't the Buddha said that to think of things that you have done good is a good thing? So there is good thinking also. They have even, I don't know, it was, rethink on those is better, forget the bad, but dwell on the good. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is another aspect. Basically, Buddha has mentioned, actually here the practice has many different stages, we can say. So first of all, a person starts having we can say a sappurisa. So assume that we are in a kind of a very much recognized as a bad person. Now I meet a good person, now a teacher, and then he is instructing me, okay, you better stop these bad things and you better do a good thing and think about that, what you have done. So suppose that you are helping another person and you think about it. And this remembering what I have done, a good thing that I have done, the, say, kind of a pleasurable or pleasant experiences that I have experienced in the past. So that may promote kind of happiness in the mind and a positive feeling in the mind. And it may appear as a kind of a remedy. That is one level. And on the other hand, thinking positively about myself. I'm a good person now. So I may deserve more, say, spiritual qualities. I may deserve kind of spiritual progress because I'm a good person now. So it promotes kind of positive thinking. And say you are continuing like that. At another level, probably you can recognize as the understanding is growing, your deep understanding about the Dhamma is growing. So probably you might understand when the I happens, when I am happens, when the self-referential thinking happens, so it can promote a little bit of distress. It can promote a little bit of anxiety. It can promote a little bit of unsatisfaction, a little bit of frustration in the mind. So that is why when it is coming to the, say, deeper practice, we can say, even that I-making, mind-making, conceit I am, even those can lead to conceptual proliferation, and that is where the root is available, the source is available, and now one is recognizing that root. So once one recognizes that root, now he is not promoting that kind of self-referential thinking, kind of self-promotional thinking. And say, in a way, we can call it as a personality type of thinking, personality view-based thinking, Sakkaya Ditthi-based thinking, personality view-based thinking. Assuming that there is a person here, there is a substantial individual here, I am here, and so I am referring myself as a person and I am referring another person as a separate person, and now I am thinking. So this is, in a way, deeply understanding. So this can lead to too much thinking. So there are actually, that's why if we go to the root cause of conceptual proliferation, that is where Buddha very beautifully highlighted. So that in this what you call Tuataka Sutta, Buddha mentioned, Moolam Papanca Sankhaya, Manta Asmiti Sabbang Upurunde. So the conceptual proliferation actually is very much like the end product. That is the symptom. But underneath is the self-referential thinking or self-referencing. So I have underneath a perception that there is a person here. Here I am. And I am here. I am thinking. I am an individual. So this is a very subtle, deeply rooted misunderstanding, we can say. So when someone is coming to the understanding of that deep situation, now he is not promoting self-referencing. Now even a good thing is done, so he is done. He no more, making a self out of that, even the good thing. But we can see the stages in our practice. That the early stage of our practice. So when we done something good, yes, we can think about it and we can be again and again rejoice about it. So that is also promoted at one level. But when you are getting to the advanced levels of practice, deeper vipassana, or we can say in the second level of samadhi, supramundane level of samadhi. So there Buddha don't allow all these type of self-referential thinking or ignorant type of thinking or promoting a self-view within oneself. Even that is Buddha say you need to recognize. Okay, rather than claiming as a person, now you need to disclaim that personality view. I-making, mind-making has to be recognized and slowly discard that. So then ultimately it's a kind of a, we can say, a relaxed mind state, a detached mind state, say unestablished mind state, an open mind state, is something that Buddha is promoting, where your mind is not into a kind of a fixation. You are not in a kind of an ignorantly thinking person. Rather, you understand deeply, okay, this is a kind of a dependently arisen process going on, dependently arisen bodily process is going on, or physical process is going on, and again a dependently arisen mental process is going on, and there are interactions between these two processes. Other than that, there is no a substantial inner core, ongoing self, ongoing person in this whole process. So it's a kind of a deeper understanding that Buddha highlights as we are continuing our practice. In another sense, we can say that is the teaching of the non-self, anatta. And when one is into that level, so he may not promote self-referential thinking.
Thank you, Bhante. Shall we open the floor, please? I'm sure there are a lot of questions to ask, because thinking is something that we are doing all the time and we have to do. I suppose being mindful of what's going on around us, and thinking of what's going on around us are at two different levels. Just watching and not going on ruminating or worrying about it is what is bad. Am I right, Bhante? That is the topic.
Correct. So actually now when actually we didn't discuss this today, now how would Buddha recommend various methodologies to replace that bad kind of thinking, kind of harmful kind of thinking, is also discussed. Say for example in the Vitakka Santana Sutta, Buddha comes up with 5 methods to say promoting some healthy type of thinking. And there Buddha mentioned, okay, the mind is continuously thinking about some agitating type of thought, an unwholesome type of thought, and probably you can replace that with a wholesome type of thought. Say, obvious example is if the mind is continuously thinking about a person and hating that person, probably you can think about something else. So that is another method. And probably you can recognize something good in that person and try to wish some loving kindness. So that is another method. And probably you can recognize the root cause, how this thought process has started. So that would be another method. So likewise, very interesting and say practical methods Buddha has highlighted to avoid unhealthy, harmful type of thinking. And that is, using the thinking process itself. So that is the beauty of the Dhamma. So now actually I have highlighted the danger in these concepts in a way. But even in the meditation at the first level, so we are using these concepts properly. So it is not that we are trying to eradicate concepts or, prohibit thinking or prohibit concepts. Rather, we are using the very concepts properly. Ultimately, the very concept starts fade off. So as the concepts are not making a mark in the mind, we can say, an impact in the mind. So seeing might become just seeing. So the mind has developed to a kind of a level where the marks indicated by all these different sites are not come and mix with the mind, not come and, disturb the mind. Thinking, the sights become just mere sights, or we can say seeing become just seeing, hearing become just hearing, sensing become just sensing, cognizing become just cognizing, but the mind's clarity may remain. So whatever these external sense impingements does not have a disturbance in the mind. So mind's clarity remains, mind's peacefulness remains. So as in the indicated in the Bahya Sutta, Dittya Dittamattam Bhavisati, Sute Sutamattam Bhavisati, Mute Mutamattam Bhavisati, Vinyate Vinyatamattam Bhavisati. So if one arrives that kind of a state through one's own practice, so that means, so the concepts are there. I mean, you are not going to destroy the concepts. You are not asking people to stop concepts. Rather, concepts are there, but now the mind has the capacity. You have developed a certain skill within yourself that concepts no more come and disturb the mind. Mind has the capacity to maintain its clarity. It is maintaining its peacefulness even though you see various sights, even though you hear various sounds, or even though you hear various songs. But the mind is not getting distracted. Mind is not getting disturbed. So the clarity remains. So that is the beauty of the practice, we can say. So the Buddha's teaching, the practice, the mindfulness practice in particular, is taking us to that kind of a capacity. And ultimately things are available, but you have the capacity to remain calm, maintain peacefulness, maintain clarity of the mind, and you are not going to think. If necessary, still you can think, but thinking happens under your supervision. Within the mindful space, okay, now mind is thinking. Like, say, while the mother is watching, a child is playing. So in case the child, touch something harmful, probably the mother can intervene and help the child stop that particular activity which can be harmful to the child. So likewise, so within the mindful space, under your supervision, under your observation, so the mind is allowed to think, maybe thinking in a beneficial way. In case mind start thinking harmful way, you can interrupt.
Any questions, please? Bhante is here to answer questions.
Bhante, how many thoughts come up in a person's mind daily, and how we can reduce the thoughts coming to mind? How is there any specific way to control the thoughts coming up to mind?
Yeah, so that's why actually today we didn't get into the topic of different methods available to reduce harmful thinking or to overcome harmful thinking, stop conceptual proliferation. We probably in a later time we'll discuss this in a deeper way. Just to give you an answer, so probably, say for example, if you are practicing mindful walking, so allow the mind to think, doesn't matter. But again and again you are cutting that conceptual proliferation, stopping that conceptual proliferation, disturbing that conceptual proliferation, and keeping your attention on the foot. Again and again your foot is touching the ground, and again you are keeping your attention there. So what happened through this process, through this exercise, is that that ongoing story in the mind get weakened. So the amount that you are spending in storytelling become less and less, because you have a kind of a directed experience. You have a kind of a selected experience, an unharmful type of experience, which promotes the kind of mind in a more cultured, more beneficial way of mindfulness. And you may understand now thinking has become somewhat weakened. The amount of thinking even become less, number of thoughts even become less, and the impact of thinking also become less. Maybe it is now appearing as a background process, and you can experience time to time some kind of calmness, peacefulness within the mind. So those thinking is no more kind of a overwhelming type of process. Rather, it is happening as a background process. And as you are continuing the practice, there may be even situation you are mindfully walking even without a single thought. So this is something that people are experiencing. This is not that I am just telling that if you refer, say, meditation interviews, so people are telling, okay, now I can walk from this end to the other end mindfully, and I am fully aware what is going on, fully aware what is happening under the feet, all different sensations I am fully aware. At that time, the thinking has completely stopped. The awareness has developed, sensitivity or body awareness has fully developed, and the unnecessary thinking, harmful thinking has fairly faded off, has become weakened, and ultimately even stopped completely. And we are fully aware, with a very silent mind, you are fully aware what is going on. So likewise, there are many practical approaches available to overcome this conceptual proliferation.
Lakshmi, yes? Unmute yourself, Lakshmi. Rohan, you have raised your hand. Why don't you unmute and ask the question?
Can I ask a question in the meantime?
Yes, I think Soma, go ahead. Yes, please.
Bhante, much merit to you for this very deep Dhamma, very inspiring, very enlightening. My question is something like this. When someone has, let's say, some degree of depression, often speaking to people like that, we see that they keep thinking and thinking and thinking about a particular incident. They might say, I lived with my husband for 20 years and now I have found out this about him. How can I forgive him? So constantly thinking about that, and the person has developed a depression. At that time, is it okay to ask that person, for example, to do mindful walking, or is that too much of a step? Should there be some other preparation to make that person able to try a method like this? Very much appreciate your response to that, Bhante.
Yeah, I think possible, because, mindful walking is something we do in an open environment and with open eyes. So it's a bodily activity, and purposely we need to walk. Intentionally we need to walk. So in one sense, it's a method to release the stress, reduce the stress. So we are walking. And as you know, many people are during the mornings, they do walking, jogging, and all these things are there. So exercises are also there. So it's very much like that. So we are simply inviting them to mindfully walk. So, sometimes if we are telling, okay, you do meditation, so they take it too serious and they think, okay, this is too much for me. I don't know how to meditate. So they even think too much about it. But rather than telling that, okay, you just walk, and you simply walk from this end to the other end. So that is how we start. So we are not trying to burden the person, telling, okay, we are doing a meditation here. Rather, we simply ask, okay, you just walk in a more relaxed manner. So don't think too much about anything, just walk and see what you feel to your foot. So that is why mostly we promote barefoot walking. And there actually you do kind of earthing yourself. So when you are earthing yourself, when you are connecting yourself fully directly with the earth, actually there are a lot of static electricity and all these things become earth, and there's a stress reduction happen as a result of that even. Now, on the other hand, to your foot, to the soul, there are many, sensitive areas. So that is being very much massaged. And that is also another health benefit, we can say. And on the other hand, it becomes an exercise rather than, sit and think and, with a depressive mood that you are looking at some direction and think. Now, this becomes a kind of an exercise you do actively. So actively you are walking. So we don't need to indicate immediately, okay, you do mindful walking or you do walking meditation. Rather, we simply promote, okay, you do a better walk, maybe 1 hour every day. Okay, you simply do a walk. You take from your house to say a particular park, or garden, or whatever it is, you do a walk. So likewise, we can systematically invite whoever the person to do a little bit of activity. So rather than being inactive and depressive and, get into a mood, now we are trying to uplift his morale and asking him to do a little bit of activity. So as he responding positively, probably we can give as a second stage, okay, while you are walking now, see what you feel at your foot. Because obviously, if you are walking barefoot, for example, so all these different gross sensations are quite possible to sense, quite possible to recognize. So what we do is asking him to keep your attention onto those places. So whatever the sensitive areas available in your foot, okay, we are asking them to keep your attention there. So it becomes another exercise now, another level of your practice. So in a way, what we are doing is promoting the self-awareness or the body awareness while discarding that rumination, while discarding that harmful thoughts. Because we are the ones promoting that thinking, but what I am doing currently is kind of deviating my attention from that thinking. The amount of energy that I am spending on thinking, now I am distracting from that, taking from that and putting a little bit of into my process, into the body. So as you are promoting this practice, probably you can understand, okay, a little bit of energy is now, mental energy is now diverted to your foot. As you continue, more energy is diverted to your foot. And less energy is given to the thinking. So ultimately, thinking becomes weaker because you are putting more energy, more mental energy, more contribution, more attention to the walking process. Therefore, I don't think it is harmful to promote mindful walking even to a person who is suffering from depression. So rather than asking them to immediately sit and close your eyes and meditate, that would be a little difficult for them. But walking in an open environment with open eyes and slowly paying attention to the sensations can be very helpful.
Much merit, Bhante.
Bhante, there is another question on chat from Rohan, who has written it because he's unable to unmute. I have also tried to unmute him, but not succeeded.
Right.
What he says is that complex and intense thinking is essential in our lives. It is as essential as breathing or eating food. So he says, my understanding is that as long as that thinking is not connected or motivated by self-interest, stress becomes manageable.
Actually, I feel it depends. So, I mean, there may be situations that the thinking may be constructive and thinking may develop further understanding. So that is also accepted. There are 3 stages of, we can say the knowledge, we can say the understanding. The Sutame Jnana, Chintame Jnana, Bhavaname Jnana. So the Sutame Jnana is something kind of a knowledge that we gather through listening, through reading, participating into discussions. Now this is the Sutame Jnana. So what we are learning through the books and listening. So that is necessary. And on the other hand, the second level is the understanding that we are gaining through the contemplation. So we do some reasoning, we do some logical analysis within ourselves. So that is also necessary. So that promotes a little bit of thinking, yes, but still the outcome may be a kind of a understanding. But the Bhavanamaya Jnana, the experiential understanding or experiential knowledge, is not mere excess thinking produced result. Rather, it's a kind of an experiential knowledge. You promote the awareness within yourself. Rather than the end result is depending reasoning, now you are promoting a complete different possibility available within our human capacity. So thinking is one level of capacity we have. But we have another capacity within ourselves. That is, we can say more into the intuitive awareness. And that doesn't require any thinking. So you can have a complete silence in your mind, but it connects with the, say, vast knowledge maybe. So it's a kind of an intuition within you. It is not that always that you want to think and take a decision, think and come to a conclusion, but that intuition you have. So the silent awareness you have may open up another capacity within you. So that is what Buddha highlighted. So how about a mind free from thinking? So how about a mind which is enjoying the inner silence? So this is a very interesting area that as humans we can say investigate. So what is this capacity that Buddha is talking? So what is the potential in that area that Buddha is highlighting? So this is something that we need to all explore and try to experience and see what it is.
Thank you very much, Bhante. Much merit. I believe it is overthinking and going over the limit, unable to stop when you know that it is causing you to be sleepless or something like that, is where it is really needing intervention, isn't it, Bhante? Not just one has to think when you are crossing the road. Or...
That's why I highlighted. So even when you are developing mindfulness, so within the mindful space, we can allow the mind to think. That is very much like we as a mother, we are allowing our child to play because playing may be useful. And he may be playing, with joy. And as a mother, you can watch him. In case he is getting into a trouble, then you are watching him, you are supervising, you are monitoring, and then you can intervene. So similarly, once we develop that capacity within us, as a result of the mindfulness practice, so then very much like the thinking becomes another skill we have, and like you are using your eyes to see things. So the mind has the capacity to think about something, but within your, very much in your supervision, within your monitoring process. So the self-monitoring process is kind of a capacity going on, and within that capacity, now the thinking also can happen. So then it can't be harmful in a way. So that is actually highlighted by the Buddha in the Vitakka Santhana Sutta. So where Buddha mentioned the person, the yogi, who is now fairly developed. So the Buddha mentioned, when it is necessary, he can think. When it is not necessary, he can keep the mind silent.
Thank you very much, Bhante. I think something very valuable Bhante said was about the walking, because isn't it, I think Bhante was also there when Venerable Dhammajiva Thero mentioned that in the prisons, walking helped the prisoners, whereas when they sat with their eyes closed, whatever they did comes back. But with their eyes open and walking, they found that type of mindfulness helpful to them. Exactly. Because they were able to get things off their mind onto Exactly. their feet, not like sitting with your eyes closed, then everything comes in. So this walking is so very, very valuable. I can understand why it is such a recommended form of meditation.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why so when you are with your open eyes and when with a very positive environment, with the nature, when you are doing walking, so it is more healthy atmosphere available and conducive environment available. And then actually it is not only the mindfulness, but even various other factors are contributing to the well-being of oneself.
Much merit, Bhante. Time has caught up. So a lot of merit for this very valuable sermon. And with all the remedies also, actually quite a lot Bhante said, and I think the walking meditation and also all those other techniques in the Vitakka by replacing thought with a different type of thought and things. So very valuable, much merit, Bhante. Shall we then wind up in the usual way, Bhante?
Yeah.
Bhante could please transfer merit to the Devas and the departed, and we'll call it a day. And much merit to Bhante, and may all Bhante's spiritual aspirations be fulfilled and Bhante live a long and happy life, helping the followers in this fashion. Much merit, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. Actually, Doctor also showing a lot of interest in the Dhamma practice, and again sort of encouraging others to participate, and again doing practice by yourself. So that is also quite an example, and thank you very much for that. And as all participants, so they also have shown their interest and they are participating, they are attentively listening. So with all this, we were able to accumulate a fair amount of merits. Let's share these merits with all the past relatives, with all the celestial beings, and whoever in need of merits. And again, we wish these merits help us also to attain path, Bhushan, Nibbana. While keeping these good wishes in our mind, let's recite the traditional verses. Etavatacham hehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Etavatacham hehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Etavatacham hehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu mamparang. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā hontu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā hontu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā hontu ñātayo. Imina punya kammena māmi bāla samāgamo. Satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Imina punya kammena māmi bāla samāgamo. Satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Imina punya kammena māmi bāla samāgamo. Satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.